Neighbors blocked my driveway without warning, so I summoned a tow truck at dawn and hauled every illegally parked vehicle 3 houses down the street onto my property. Their furious shouts rang through the quiet neighborhood as I clipped each car to the hook and pulled it away. I stayed silent while they cursed and pleaded for mercy. This morning, my phone blew up with relentless calls and accusations, filling my screen with desperate voicemails. Justice was served in full. Block my driveway? I'll go ahead and take your vehicles. So I live out in the country in Virginia, about 30 minutes from the nearest town. It's usually pretty quiet out here, which is exactly why I moved here 5 years ago. I've got a nice little property at the end of a dirt road cul-de-sac. It's nothing fancy, just a small 3-bedroom house with a decent yard and a workshop where I tinker with my trucks when I'm not working. The road leading to my place is narrow as hell, basically 1 car width with a few spots where you can pull over if someone's coming the other way. I work for Thompson's Towing and Recovery. Been there about 7 years now. We handle everything from basic roadside assistance to heavy recovery work. I started as a driver but worked my way up to shift manager. The pay is decent and I like the work. There's something satisfying about helping people out of bad situations, even if they're not always happy to see you. This weekend I'm on the state police towing rotation, which means I'm basically on call for any wrecks, DUIs, or impounds the cops need handled. It can be a pain in the ass sometimes, but the money's good and it keeps things interesting. When you're on rotation, you've got exactly 25 minutes to get to wherever they need you once you receive the call. Miss that window too many times and you get bumped from the rotation list. My neighbors, the Wilsons, moved in about a year ago. They're a couple in their 40s with 2 teenage kids. They seemed nice enough at first, but they've started having these parties that get pretty wild. I don't mind a good time, but their parties have been getting bigger and louder lately. Yesterday was Friday, and I noticed cars starting to pull in next door around 6 p.m., more than usual. I figured I should give them a heads up since I was on call. I walked over while they were setting up and found Mrs. Wilson, Patricia, hanging up some string lights on their porch. I waved as I approached. "Hey Patricia, looks like you're having a big one tonight." She smiled and nodded. "Yeah, Megan's home from college for the weekend. Thought we'd let her have some friends over." I explained that I was on call and might need to leave at any time during the night. I asked if she could make sure none of their guests blocked my driveway. She seemed totally fine with it, promised to tell everyone where not to park. I even pointed out the no parking signs I'd put up after the last big party they had. We chatted for a few more minutes, and I headed back home feeling pretty good about the whole thing. Around 9 p.m., I noticed the party was getting louder, a lot louder, and there were way more cars than I expected. This wasn't just some friends, this was looking like half the county was showing up. Still, none of them were blocking my driveway yet, so I just minded my business. I spent the evening watching some Netflix and doing a bit of paperwork. The rotation had been quiet so far, which was unusual for a Friday night. Usually, we get at least a couple of drunk drivers or fender benders. I was just thinking about heading to bed when my phone rang around 12:30 a.m. It was my boss, Mike. "Hey, can you head out to that multi-car accident on Route 29? Sounds like we'll need both the rotator and the light-duty flatbed." "No problem," I told him. "I'll head out now." I got my boots on, grabbed my high-vis jacket, and collected my gear. When I stepped outside, the party next door was in full swing. The music was blasting so loud I could feel the bass from my porch. There were people everywhere, not just inside the house but all over their yard, and they definitely weren't just college kids. Most looked like high schoolers, and they were all clearly wasted. I walked to my truck, and that's when I saw it. My driveway was completely blocked, not by 1 or 2 cars, but by a whole line of them. There were pickup trucks, sedans, even a couple of those stupid lifted Jeeps that never see actual off-road use. I counted at least 15 vehicles parked across my driveway and along the narrow road. I tried backing out through my side yard, but with all the rain we'd had this week, the ground was basically clay mud. Even with my 4x4, I knew I'd get stuck. I checked the time. I had about 20 minutes to get to the accident scene before I'd miss my window. I took a deep breath and started walking toward the Wilson house. The music got louder with every step. By the time I reached their property, I had to practically shout just to hear myself think. The front door was wide open with people spilling in and out, red cups everywhere. Some kid was puking in the bushes. As I tried to make my way to the door, some drunk guy in a backwards cap stepped in front of me. "Yo, who the fuck are you?" He was swaying slightly, beer sloshing out of his cup. "I'm the neighbor. Need to talk to Patricia or Tom." I tried to step around him. "This is private property, old man. You weren't invited." He was maybe 19, trying to look tough in front of his friends who were now watching us. I didn't have time for this shit. "Look, I just need to find the homeowners. It's important." Another kid joined him. "Dude, it's probably just some boomer coming to complain about the noise." I pushed past them and made my way into the house. The place was packed wall to wall with drunk teenagers. The furniture had been pushed to the sides, and someone had set up a beer pong table in the living room. I scanned the crowd for Patricia or Tom, but didn't see either of them. I finally spotted Patricia in the kitchen, mixing drinks with a couple of girls who definitely weren't old enough to be drinking. She was clearly drunk herself, laughing too loud and spilling tequila on the counter. "Patricia!" I had to shout 3 times before she noticed me. Her face changed when she saw me, not embarrassed or apologetic, annoyed. What are you doing here? There are about 15 cars blocking my driveway. I need them moved. I'm on call, remember? I need to get to work. She rolled her eyes and took another swig from her cup. Natural light, classy. Oh God, not this again. Fine. She turned toward the living room and yelled, not nearly loud enough over the music, "Whoever is blocking the driveway next door, move your trucks." Then she turned back to me like she'd solved the problem. No one even looked up. No one heard her over the music. Or if they did, they didn't care. "Patricia, no one heard that. I really need those cars moved now. I've got to get to work." She sighed dramatically. "It's a party. Relax. They'll move them eventually." "I don't have eventually. I have right now. I'm on call. I explained this to you earlier." "Oh my God, you're being such a buzzkill." She turned to the girls she was with. "This is my neighbor. He's always complaining about something." I stood there, trying to keep my cool. "Look, I'm not trying to ruin your party. I just need to get to work. It's my job." She took another drink and then slammed her cup down. "Fine, I'll try again." She walked to the door, me following behind her. She yelled out the door, slightly louder this time. "Hey, anyone blocking next door needs to move. Now." Then she turned back to me. "Happy? Will you make sure they actually move? I need to leave in the next 5 minutes." That's when she got nasty. "Oh God, this guy again." She slammed the door in my face. I knocked again. When she opened it, she had a fresh beer in hand. "What now?" I tried one more time to explain calmly. "Patricia, I'm on call for the state police. If I don't show up, I could lose my contract. Please, just help me get those cars moved." She laughed in my face. "It's a party. Relax." Then she shut the door again. Through the door, I heard her yell, "Fuck that tow truck guy!" I stood there for a moment, processing what had just happened. I turned to leave, and that's when some guy, big dude with a tank top showing off his mediocre gym progress, threw a beer can that hit me in the back. "Yeah, you best leave. Go on, get," he shouted, high-fiving his buddies. I didn't say anything, just kept walking. My phone was buzzing in my pocket, probably Mike wondering where I was. As I walked back to my house, I looked at all the vehicles blocking me in. Most had college or high school parking stickers. A few had those family stickers showing how many kids and pets they had. When I got back to my property, I called Mike. "Hey, I've got a situation here. I'm blocked in by about 15 cars from a party next door. Can't get out." Mike cursed. "Seriously? Can you get them moved?" I tried. The homeowner's drunk and doesn't care. Slammed the door in my face. "All right, I'll send Thompson to the accident. What are you going to do about those cars?" I thought for a moment. "How many trucks do we have available tonight?" "Let's see. We've got about 10 drivers on tonight." "Why?" I smiled to myself. "Send them all over to my place. I've got some private property impounds for them." "All of them? Are you serious?" "Dead serious. And call dispatch. Ask them to send an officer out here too, just in case things get heated." Mike laughed. "You're evil. I love it. They'll be there in 20. I hung up and called the county police dispatch directly. I explained the situation, blocked in, drunk minors everywhere, potential for trouble when we started towing. They promised to send someone right away. While I waited, I took pictures of each vehicle blocking my driveway, making sure to get clear shots of their position relative to my property and the no parking signs. I also started writing down license plate numbers and vehicle descriptions. About 15 minutes later, a county sheriff's cruiser pulled up at the end of the road. Deputy Williams got out. I knew him pretty well from previous tows. "Evening," he said, looking around at all the cars. "Quite a party." "Not my party," I said. "And all these vehicles are blocking me in. I've got tow trucks on the way." He nodded. "Private property impound. You're within your rights. Want me to try talking to the homeowners first?" "Already tried." Got a beer can thrown at me for my trouble. His expression hardened. "Show me where." We walked over to the Wilson house together. The party was still going strong, but a few people noticed the uniform and started nudging each other. The deputy knocked on the door, a proper police knock that got immediate attention. Tom Wilson answered this time, looking surprised to see a cop on his doorstep. "Officer, is there a problem?" "Sir, are you aware that your guests are blocking your neighbor's driveway? He's unable to leave his property." Tom looked confused, then saw me standing behind the deputy. "Oh, well, I'm sure we can sort that out. Let me just..." That's when the first tow truck arrived, then another, and another. Within minutes, the narrow road was lined with tow trucks, their yellow lights flashing and illuminating the night. The party got real quiet, real fast. The look on Tom's face when he saw all those tow trucks lining the road was absolutely priceless. His eyes went wide, and his mouth dropped open like he was trying to catch flies. A few of the partygoers had wandered outside to see what was happening, and they froze when they saw the flashing lights. "What the hell is this?" Tom asked, his voice cracking a little. Deputy Williams explained the situation calmly. "Sir, your guests have illegally blocked your neighbor's driveway. He's within his rights to have these vehicles towed at the owner's expense." Tom started stammering about how this was all a misunderstanding, but I wasn't in the mood for his bullshit. I nodded to my first driver, Dave, who was already hooking up a shiny new Dodge Ram with a Daddy's Money sticker on the back window. "You can't do this!" Tom shouted, suddenly finding his voice. "Actually, I can," I said. "I tried to resolve this nicely. Your wife slammed the door in my face and cursed at me. Then one of your guests threw a beer at me. So yeah, I absolutely can do this." The deputy backed me up. "He's right, Mr. Wilson. These vehicles are illegally parked and blocking access to private property. The towing is completely legitimate." By this point, word had spread through the party. Drunk teenagers started pouring out of the house, panicking when they saw their precious rides getting hooked up. The chaos was immediate. Some kids were crying, others were yelling, and a few tried to run to their cars. Dave had already lifted the Ram and was pulling away. The owner, some college-aged kid in a polo shirt with the collar popped, came running out screaming about his dad being a lawyer. Dave just gave him our business card with the impound compound address as he drove off. Patricia stumbled out of the house, still clutching her natural light. What the fuck is happening? She looked at me with pure hatred. You called the cops? Are you fucking kidding me? I shrugged. I tried to be reasonable. You chose to be an asshole. My drivers were working efficiently, hooking up cars left and right. We had a system going. One truck would pull up, hook a car, and pull away while the next one moved into position. It was like a beautiful, choreographed dance of justice. The scene was getting chaotic. Some kid tried to jump into his Honda Civic while my guy Jason was hooking it up. Deputy Williams had to physically remove him from the vehicle. Another girl was on her knees begging us not to take her BMW that Daddy just bought her. I almost felt bad. Almost. Tom was trying to regain control of the situation, telling kids to calm down and that they'd sort it out, but the panic had set in. Some kids were calling their parents. Others were trying to negotiate with my drivers, offering cash to unhook their cars. My guys knew better. We have strict policies against that kind of thing. Patricia was getting in Deputy Williams' face, slurring about how this was harassment and how she was going to sue everyone. The deputy remained professional but firm, explaining that they were the ones breaking the law, not us. I stood back and supervised the operation, making sure everything was done by the book. Each driver took photos before hooking up, documented the condition of the vehicle, and made sure to secure everything properly. No one could claim we damaged anything. About halfway through, a black Escalade pulled up at the end of the road. A middle-aged man in what looked like hastily thrown-on golf clothes got out. He marched up to where we were working, face red with anger. "Who's in charge here?" he demanded. I stepped forward. "That would be me. My daughter just called me in tears. You're towing her car? Do you have any idea who I am? I've heard this so many times in my career." "No, sir, I don't. But I do know your daughter's car is illegally parked and blocking my driveway. I'm Richard Thornton. I'm on the county board. This is ridiculous. Unhook my daughter's car immediately." Deputy Williams stepped in. "Mr. Thornton, your position doesn't exempt your daughter from parking laws. These vehicles are being legally towed from private property." Thornton's face got even redder. "This is absurd. I'll have your badge for this." The deputy didn't flinch. "You're welcome to file a complaint, sir. But right now, I suggest you calm down before I have to take official notice of your behavior." That shut him up pretty quick. He stormed off to comfort his crying daughter, shooting daggers at me with his eyes the whole time. We were down to the last few vehicles when things got really interesting. There was a yellow Honda Civic, a gold Chevy Silverado, and an old Ford F-150 left to tow. The Civic owner must have been watching from inside the house. As soon as one of my drivers approached his car, he came sprinting out, jumped in, and peeled out of there, nearly hitting 2 people in the process. Deputy Williams radioed in his plate number, but I wasn't too concerned about one getting away. The Silverado girl was a different story. She came stumbling out, clearly wasted, fumbling with her keys. Deputy Williams immediately moved to intercept her. "Ma'am, you appear to be intoxicated. I can't allow you to drive." "I'm fine," she slurred, trying to push past him. "It's my truck. You can't take it. I can't let you drive in this condition," the deputy explained. "It's for your safety and everyone else's." She wasn't having it. She somehow managed to get around him and into her truck. She started it up and threw it in reverse, tires spinning in the mud as she tried to escape. But she was so drunk she couldn't drive straight. She veered off the driveway and into my yard, tearing up my grass and getting stuck in the mud. The deputy approached her vehicle cautiously. "Ma'am, please turn off the engine and step out of the vehicle." Instead, she gunned it, digging deeper into my yard and spraying mud everywhere. The deputy had to jump back to avoid getting hit. That's when this went from a simple tow to something more serious. Deputy Williams called for backup and approached the vehicle again, this time with his hand on his holster. "Turn off the vehicle now and step out with your hands visible." The girl finally seemed to realize she was in serious trouble. She shut off the engine and started crying. When she got out, she could barely stand. The deputy administered a field sobriety test, which she failed spectacularly. She couldn't even touch her nose. While this was happening, I noticed Patricia and Tom having a heated argument on their porch. Tom seemed to be yelling at her, gesturing wildly at the tow trucks and the mess in their yard. Patricia was crying, mascara running down her face. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but it was clear this party had just caused some serious marital problems. The deputy handcuffed the Silverado girl and read her rights. Turned out she was only 19, definitely not old enough to be drinking. She got charged with underage drinking, DUI, and resisting an officer. Not a great night for her. As for the F-150, no one ever came out to claim it. The owner was probably passed out somewhere inside the house. We hooked it up and took it away like all the others. By the time we finished, it was nearly 3 a.m. The party had completely died down. Most of the guests had either left on foot, called for rides, or were sleeping it off inside. The Wilsons' front yard looked like a disaster zone. Beer cans, red cups, and random shoes scattered everywhere. I made sure to thank all my drivers for coming out. I'd brought coffee and snacks from my house to keep them going through the night. They were all pretty amused by the whole situation. It's not often we get to tow this many vehicles at once, especially not from such entitled people. Deputy Williams finished his paperwork and came over to where I was standing. "Well, that was an eventful night. You heading to the shop now?" "Yeah, still on call for the rest of the night. Might as well go in and get some paperwork done." He nodded. "I'll follow you out. Make sure you don't have any more trouble." I thanked him and headed back to my now clear driveway. As I was getting into my truck, I saw Tom Wilson walking toward me. He looked defeated, shoulders slumped, the fight completely gone out of him. "Look," he said when he reached me, "I'm really sorry about all this. Patricia, she gets carried away sometimes. We didn't mean for things to get so out of hand." I wasn't in a forgiving mood. "You let a bunch of underage kids drink at your house, Tom. Your wife insulted me when I politely asked for help." Someone threw a beer at me, and now my yard is torn up from that drunk girl's truck. Sorry, doesn't really cut it. He ran his hand through his hair. I know, it's just, Megan wanted to have some friends over and then more people showed up and it just, I don't know how it got so out of control. Well, now you've got a yard full of trash, probably a house full of puke, and a bunch of angry parents who are going to be calling you when they find out where their kids' cars are. He winced. Yeah, where did you take them anyway? How much is this going to cost? I handed him one of our business cards. Thompson's Towing and Recovery. Standard rate is $289 for the tow, plus $55 a day for storage, and a $100 gate fee since it's after hours. And tomorrow's Sunday, so we're closed. That means everyone's looking at a minimum of $499 to get their vehicles back on Monday. His eyes widened. Jesus Christ. Should have thought of that before you let your party get out of hand, I said, climbing into my truck. Oh, and you might want to lawyer up. Serving alcohol to minors is a pretty serious offense in Virginia. I left him standing there, looking like his world was crumbling around him. Maybe it was a bit harsh, but after the night I'd had, I wasn't feeling particularly charitable. When I got to the shop, Mike was waiting for me with a grin on his face. Holy shit, you actually did it. Thompson told me you called in the whole fleet, but I didn't believe him. I laughed as I poured myself a cup of coffee. Believe it, we got 14 vehicles total. One got away, but the rest are all tucked in nice and cozy in the impound lot. That's going to be one hell of a payday, Mike said, shaking his head in admiration. You get any pushback? Some. County board member showed up throwing his weight around. Deputy Williams shut him down pretty quick. One girl got arrested for DUI after she tore up my yard trying to escape. The rest just watched in horror as their precious cars got hauled away. Mike laughed. Bet they won't park in your driveway again. Damn right they won't. I spent the rest of the night cleaning equipment and catching up on paperwork. Around 6 a.m., I started getting calls. The first was from a very angry mother demanding to know where her son's truck was. Ma'am, your son's vehicle was illegally parked on private property and blocking a driveway. It's been impounded at Thompson's Towing and Recovery. This is outrageous. He was at a friend's house. You can't just tow people's cars. Actually, I can. When they're illegally parked and blocking access to private property, that's exactly what we do. I'm calling my lawyer. This is highway robbery. I remained calm. You're welcome to do that, ma'am, but I have photographs showing your son's vehicle clearly parked in front of a no parking sign and blocking a private driveway. Your lawyer will tell you the same thing I'm telling you. The tow was completely legal. She hung up on me. I got about a dozen more calls just like that over the next few hours. Some threatened lawyers, others begged for a break on the fee, and a few actually apologized for their kids' behavior. I gave the same answer to all of them. They could pick up their vehicles on Monday when we reopened, and here's how much it would cost. Around noon, I finally headed home, exhausted but satisfied. The Wilsons' house was quiet when I drove past. Their yard was still a mess, but someone had made an attempt to pick up some of the trash. I noticed Tom's car was gone, but Patricia's was still there. Trouble in paradise, perhaps. I slept for a few hours, then got up to assess the damage to my yard. The Silverado had left deep ruts in the grass and mud. It would take some work to fix, but nothing too serious. I took photos for insurance purposes, just in case. Sunday passed quietly. I caught up on some sleep and did a few chores around the house. The Wilsons' place remained eerily quiet all day. No sign of life except for Patricia briefly coming outside to get the mail. She didn't look in my direction. Monday morning, I headed to the shop early. I knew we'd be busy with people coming to retrieve their vehicles. I made sure all the paperwork was in order and that we had the payment system ready to go. The first person showed up right as we opened at 8 a.m. It was the popped collar kid whose Ram we'd towed first. He had his father with him, a stern-looking man in an expensive suit who was clearly used to getting his way. I understand you have my son's truck, the father said, his tone clipped and professional. We'd like it back immediately. I pulled up the paperwork. That'll be $499. We take cash, credit, or debit. $499? That's absurd. For what? $289 for the tow, $110 for 2 days of storage, and a $100 gate fee for after-hours impound. The father's face reddened. This is highway robbery. My son was at a friend's house. He wasn't doing anything wrong. I pulled out the photos we'd taken. Your son's vehicle was parked here, directly in front of this no parking sign, blocking this driveway. The homeowner requested the vehicle be removed. Everything was done by the book. The father examined the photos, looking for any loophole. Finding none, he reluctantly pulled out his wallet. This is the last time I'm bailing you out, he told his son, who looked like he wanted to disappear. As they were paying, I had a little stroke of genius. I added a note to their receipt. Special thanks to Patricia Wilson for hosting the party that got your vehicle towed. The father read it and frowned. Patricia Wilson? Is that the homeowner who had you tow the car? I kept my face neutral. I'm not at liberty to discuss the details of the tow request, sir. He folded the receipt and put it in his pocket, giving his son a look that promised a serious conversation later. I did the same thing for every vehicle owner who came in that day. Each receipt thanked Patricia Wilson for getting their car towed. It was petty, I know, but after the way she treated me, I figured she deserved to have some angry parents knocking on her door. The day was a parade of angry parents, embarrassed teenagers, and entitled college kids. Some tried to argue, others tried to negotiate, but all of them ended up paying. By the end of the day, we'd collected nearly $7,000 in towing and storage fees. The last person to show up was Richard Thornton, the county board member. He walked in like he owned the place, looking down his nose at our modest office. "I'm here for my daughter's car," he announced, not bothering with pleasantries. I pulled up the information. "That'll be $499, Mr. Thornton." He slid his credit card across the counter without a word. As I processed the payment, he fixed me with a cold stare. "You know, you've made some powerful enemies this weekend." I handed him his receipt with the special note about Patricia Wilson. "Just doing my job, sir. Your daughter's car is in space 14. Keys are in the lockbox on the dashboard." He took the receipt, read the note, and his expression changed slightly. "Patricia Wilson, Tom Wilson's wife?" I just smiled. "Have a nice day, Mr. Thornton." As he left, I couldn't help but feel a little smug. The entitled rich guy act might work on some people, but not on me. I've been in this business too long to be intimidated by someone just because they have money or connections. By the end of Monday, all but 3 vehicles had been claimed. The old F-150 was still sitting in our lot. No one had called about it at all. The Silverado girl's truck was there too, but she was probably still dealing with her DUI charges. And there was one Honda Accord that no one had come for yet. I was just closing up shop when my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I answered anyway. "Hello? Is this the asshole who towed my daughter's car?" a gruff voice demanded. "This is Thompson's Towing and Recovery. If your daughter's vehicle was impounded, you can come retrieve it during business hours with proper ID and payment." "Listen here, you piece of shit. My daughter told me what happened. You had no right to tow those cars. They were at a private residence with permission." I recognized the voice now. It was Tom Wilson, and he was drunk. "Mr. Wilson, your guests were blocking my driveway after I specifically asked you and your wife to make sure that didn't happen. The tows were completely legal. You've ruined us, you know that? Patricia's been getting calls all day from angry parents. Some county board member showed up at our door this morning screaming about how we got his daughter's car towed. What the hell did you tell these people?" I smiled to myself. My little receipt trick had worked even better than I'd hoped. "I didn't tell them anything that wasn't true, Tom." "Bullshit. They all think Patricia called to have their cars towed. We've lived here for a year, and now everyone hates us." "Actions have consequences," I said simply. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before letting your house turn into Animal House and ignoring your neighbor's reasonable requests." He cursed at me and hung up. I put my phone away, feeling a mix of satisfaction and a tiny bit of guilt. But then I remembered Patricia slamming the door in my face, calling me names, and that guy throwing a beer at me. The guilt evaporated pretty quickly after that. As I drove home that evening, I noticed the Wilsons' house was dark. Tom's car was in the driveway, but Patricia's was gone. I wondered if she'd left him, or if she was just out somewhere. Not that I cared much either way. The next morning, I woke up to find a note taped to my front door. It was from Tom. "I'm sorry about what happened this weekend. Patricia and I are getting divorced. She's moved in with her sister for now. I want you to know I never approved of how out of control that party got. I should have put my foot down. I hope we can eventually be civil neighbors. Tom." I folded the note and put it in my pocket. I hadn't meant to contribute to breaking up a marriage. But then again, if one wild party was all it took to end their relationship, they probably had deeper issues. Over the next few days, things slowly returned to normal. The ruts in my yard got filled in. The unclaimed F-150 turned out to belong to some kid who'd borrowed it from his uncle without permission. He was too scared to come claim it after it got towed. The Silverado girl's parents eventually came to get her truck, looking embarrassed and apologetic. Tom Wilson kept to himself. I saw him outside occasionally, doing yard work or getting his mail, but he always gave me a wide berth. The parties stopped completely. The neighborhood returned to the quiet, peaceful place I'd moved here for in the first place. About 2 weeks after the incident, I was working in my garage when a county sheriff's vehicle pulled into my driveway. For a moment, I worried that someone had filed a complaint about the tows, but when the door opened, it was Deputy Williams, off duty and in civilian clothes. "Hey there," he said, walking up to my garage. "Got a minute?" "Sure," I said, wiping my hands on a rag. "What's up?" He grinned. "Just wanted to let you know, that Silverado girl," Judge threw the book at her. "DUI, underage drinking, destruction of property, resisting an officer. She got her license suspended for a year, hefty fine, and community service." "Good to hear," I said. "Justice served." "Also," he continued, "thought you might like to know that Richard Thornton, our esteemed county board member, turns out his daughter wasn't the only minor drinking at that party. There's an investigation into the Wilsons for serving alcohol to minors. Thornton's leading the charge." I couldn't help but laugh. "Talk about karma." Deputy Williams nodded. "Sometimes things have a way of working out." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and nice touch with those receipts. Word got around about that. Patricia Wilson is not a popular woman in the county right now." I just smiled. "I have no idea what you're talking about." He laughed and headed back to his car. "Sure you don't. Have a good one." As I watched him drive away, I felt a sense of satisfaction. Sometimes being petty feels pretty damn good, especially when it's justified. The Wilsons learned a valuable lesson that weekend. Don't mess with the tow truck guy at the end of the road. And as for me, well, I went back to my quiet life in the country. But now, when I drive past those no parking signs at the end of my driveway, they make me smile a little, because I know for a fact that nobody in this county is going to park in front of them ever again. The next few days were pretty interesting. I kept getting calls from angry parents and vehicle owners. Most of them followed the same script. They'd start by threatening legal action. I'd show them the photos of their illegally parked vehicles, and they'd grudgingly pay up. A few tried to haggle on the price, but our rates are fixed for a reason. One mom actually broke down crying in our office, saying her son was a good boy who'd never been in trouble before. I almost felt bad until she mentioned he drove a lifted Jeep with those stupid angry eye headlight covers. Those guys are always trouble. The F-150 remained unclaimed for nearly a week. I was starting to think we'd end up having to file for an abandoned vehicle title when this older guy in his 60s showed up looking confused. My nephew said something about my truck being here, he said, scratching his head. Turns out the kid at the party had borrowed his uncle's truck without permission. The uncle was surprisingly cool about it, said it would be a good lesson for the kid. He paid the fees himself, but mentioned the nephew would be working it off by doing farm chores for the next 6 months. Sometimes you gotta learn the hard way, he told me with a knowing nod. I couldn't agree more. By Wednesday, the Silverado girl's parents finally showed up. They were surprisingly apologetic, not at all like most of the entitled parents I'd been dealing with. The dad actually thanked me for towing the truck. If you hadn't, she might have tried to drive home drunk and killed herself or someone else, he said quietly, while his wife was filling out the paperwork. This was the wake-up call she needed. I nodded, respecting his perspective. Hope things work out for her. They will. She's a good kid who made some bad choices. She'll face the consequences and learn from them. That's the thing about this job. You see people at their worst, but occasionally you get reminded that most folks are actually decent when they're not being entitled assholes. On Thursday morning, I was grabbing coffee at the local gas station when I ran into Richard Thornton. He was wearing a suit and looking important as usual. When he saw me, I expected him to either ignore me or make some snide comment. Instead, he walked right up to me. "You're the tow truck operator, correct?" His tone was all business. That's right. He handed me a business card. "I'd like to speak with you about the party at the Wilson residence. The county board is investigating them for serving alcohol to minors. Your testimony would be valuable." I took the card, surprised by this turn of events. "I'll think about it." "Please do. What happened that night was unacceptable. My daughter is 19 years old. She shouldn't have been drinking, and I've dealt with her accordingly. But adults who provide alcohol to teenagers need to be held accountable." I couldn't argue with that logic. "I'll give you a call." He nodded curtly and walked away. I stood there holding his card, thinking about how quickly the tables had turned. The Wilsons had gone from hosting the party of the year to being social pariahs and potentially facing legal trouble. When I got home that evening, I noticed Tom Wilson outside checking his mail. He looked rough, unshaven, wearing the same clothes I'd seen him in yesterday. When he saw me pull up, he gave an awkward wave. I waved back, deciding to be civil. The weekend came and went without incident. No parties, no drama, just the peace and quiet I'd moved out here for in the first place. I spent Saturday fixing the ruts in my yard from the Silverado incident and Sunday doing maintenance on my truck. Monday morning, I was heading out to work when I noticed a for sale sign had appeared in the Wilsons' yard overnight. Tom was outside adjusting it when I drove past. Our eyes met briefly, but neither of us acknowledged the other. At work, Mike was full of questions about the aftermath of what we now called the Great Tow Job of 2023. "So the Wilsons are selling their place? Damn, you really ran them out of town," he said, looking impressed. I shrugged. Not my intention. I just wanted to get to work that night without being blocked in. Still, it's pretty epic. The guys are still talking about it. Dave said he's never seen so many drunk teenagers crying in one place. I laughed, despite myself. Yeah, it was quite a scene. "Oh, by the way," Mike added, "Thompson wanted me to tell you he's giving you a bonus for all those tows. Said it was the most profitable weekend we've had all year. That was unexpected, but welcome news. Tell him I appreciate it." "Will do." "Oh, and there's a guy waiting in the office for you. Says he needs to talk about one of the tows from that night." I headed to the front office, wondering what fresh complaint I'd have to deal with now. To my surprise, it was Deputy Williams, in uniform this time. "Morning," he said, standing up when I entered. "Got a minute to talk?" "Sure. What's up?" "The county prosecutor is building a case against the Wilsons for serving alcohol to minors. They want statements from everyone involved that night, including you." I nodded. Thornton mentioned something about that. "I'll help however I can." "Good. They'll probably want you to come in and give a formal statement this week." He handed me a card with the prosecutor's information. "Also, just so you know, that girl who tore up your yard, she pled guilty to DUI and underage consumption. Got her license suspended for a year, plus community service and a hefty fine. Seems fair," I said. "One more thing," Williams added, lowering his voice. "Word around the department is that Tom Wilson filed for divorce. Apparently this wasn't the first time Patricia's partying got out of hand, just the most expensive. I wasn't sure how to respond to that. Not my business, but I can't say I'm surprised." Williams nodded. "Anyway, just wanted to give you the heads up about the prosecutor. They'll be in touch." After he left, I sat at my desk thinking about how one night had caused such a cascade of consequences, all because some entitled people couldn't respect a simple request not to block my driveway. The next couple of weeks were relatively uneventful. I gave my statement to the prosecutor, providing the photos I'd taken and a detailed account of what happened that night. The case against the Wilsons was moving forward, though I heard Patricia was trying to pin all the blame on Tom. One morning, about 3 weeks after the incident, I was having breakfast when someone knocked on my door. It was Tom Wilson, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Got a minute?" he asked, his voice rough. I hesitated, then nodded and stepped aside to let him in. He declined my offer of coffee and got straight to the point. I'm moving out next week. The house is sold. That was quick, I remarked. Motivated seller, he said with a humorless laugh. Look, I didn't come here to make excuses. What happened that night was wrong. Patricia and I should have controlled the situation better. I just nodded, waiting for him to continue. The divorce will be final soon. Patricia's facing charges for serving alcohol to minors. I might be too, though my lawyer thinks they'll drop the charges against me since I wasn't even home when most of those kids showed up. He ran a hand through his hair. Our lives are basically ruined here. I didn't set out to ruin anyone's life, Tom. I just wanted to get to work. I know. That's why I'm here. I wanted to apologize before I leave. I should have stepped up that night instead of letting Patricia handle it. I knew she was drunk and wouldn't take you seriously. His apology seemed genuine, which surprised me. I appreciate that. Anyway, the new owners are a retired couple. No wild parties to worry about. He attempted a smile. So, no hard feelings? I considered for a moment. No hard feelings. We shook hands, and he left. I watched him walk back to his house, shoulders slumped under the weight of how quickly his life had fallen apart. I didn't feel responsible exactly, but I couldn't help wondering if things might have gone differently if I'd handled the situation another way. Nah, probably not. Some people just have to learn the hard way. The following weekend, I noticed a moving truck at the Wilsons' place. Tom was directing the movers while Patricia was nowhere to be seen. By Sunday evening, the house was empty, and the Wilsons were gone. Monday at work, I got an unexpected visitor. It was the girl who'd been arrested for DUI after tearing up my yard with her Silverado. She looked much different now. Sober, for one thing, and clearly nervous. Hi, she said, fidgeting with her keys. I'm Amber. I just wanted to apologize for what happened, and for messing up your yard. I was surprised by the apology. Thanks, I appreciate that. Part of my community service is making amends to people I hurt, she explained. I was really stupid that night. I could have hurt someone. Well, the yard's fixed now. No permanent damage done. She nodded, still looking uncomfortable. Also, I wanted to pay for the repairs. She held out an envelope. It's not much, but it should cover the grass seed and stuff. I took the envelope, genuinely impressed by her maturity. Thanks, that's very responsible of you. I'm trying to be, she said with a small smile. My parents took my truck keys for the next 6 months, even after my suspension is up. Can't say I blame them. After she left, I opened the envelope. There was $200 in cash and a handwritten note apologizing again for her behavior. It was more than enough to cover the yard repairs I'd already done. The note mentioned she was now attending AA meetings, even though the court hadn't required it. Maybe some good would come out of this mess after all. The next few months were peaceful. The new neighbors moved in, a retired couple named the Johnsons, who waved whenever they saw me and kept their property immaculate. No wild parties, no drama, just quiet country living. I ran into Deputy Williams at the gas station one afternoon in late summer. He updated me on the legal aftermath of that wild night. Patricia Wilson got probation and a fine for serving alcohol to minors, he told me. Tom got the charges dropped since he wasn't home when most of it happened. They're officially divorced now. What about the kids who were drinking? Most got community service and alcohol education classes. That Silverado girl is actually doing really well in her program. Her probation officer says she's become a model participant, even speaking to high school kids about the dangers of drunk driving. I nodded, thinking about her apology at the shop. Good for her. Oh, and get this, Williams added with a grin. Richard Thornton used the whole incident as a platform for his re-election campaign. He's running on a Protect Our Children ticket now, talking about cracking down on underage drinking. Politicians, man. He shook his head. Never waste a good crisis, I guess, I said. As summer turned to fall, the incident became just another story people told around town. Remember when that tow truck guy hauled away half the cars at that wild party? I'd occasionally overhear at the diner or gas station. My reputation had taken on a slightly legendary quality. Don't mess with the tow truck guy at the end of the road. One Saturday in October, I was working in my garage when a tow truck pulled up. It was Dave, one of my drivers. Boss wants you to see this, he said, handing me an envelope. Inside was a newspaper clipping from the County Gazette. It was a small article about Patricia Wilson pleading guilty to furnishing alcohol to minors. The article mentioned that she'd moved to another state after her divorce, and the sale of her home following an incident involving multiple vehicles being towed from an out-of-control party. There was a note from Thompson. Thought you'd want this for your scrapbook. Best night of business we ever had. I laughed and pinned the article to my garage wall. A reminder that actions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences involve a fleet of tow trucks in the middle of the night. Life eventually returned completely to normal. The story of the great tow job faded from local gossip as newer, juicier scandals took its place. The Johnsons turned out to be perfect neighbors, quiet, respectful, and they even brought me cookies at Christmas. Sometimes when I'm on call and it's late at night, I think about that crazy evening. All I wanted was to get to work, and instead, I ended up in the middle of small-town drama that changed several lives forever. Was I petty? Maybe a little, but I stand by what I did. The moral of the story? Don't block someone's driveway, especially not a tow truck driver's driveway, because we have the means and the motivation to make you regret it in ways you never imagined. And those no parking signs at the end of my driveway? They haven't been ignored since.